Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Scanlan, and it's great to be here to wrap up day one of your conference. I'd like to just pause and have you travel with me together for a few minutes to a near future of 2035. And I want you to imagine a time when we have cleaner air and quieter streets without combustion engines and fossil fuel emissions from utilities. A time when we have vibrant farmers markets supporting organic local farmers and producers, and healthier people. When we have affordable, clean, and reliable water due to investments in green infrastructure, greater access to jobs, and more stable middle-class neighborhoods due to the proliferation of worker-owned union democratic enterprises, and a more robust political life fueled by these economic democratic enterprises that have taught people how to participate in the economy and in political life. So if you like that future, stick with me for the next 20 to 30 minutes when we're together here today. I'm going to be talking to you about my new book, Prosperity in the Fossil-Free Economy, Cooperatives and the Design of Sustainable Businesses. The book is based on research that I've done over the past 5 years, and I've identified sustainability pathbreakers in the cooperative sector in Spain and the US. And I highlight those in the book, and I talk about the lessons that I've learned from those pathbreakers about the legal design of cooperative enterprises and how every cooperative enterprise can learn from these pathbreakers to incorporate a broad-based sustainability into your day-to-day operations. So if you want to learn more about my book, the website is up on the screen. And I'm going to start by talking about the present challenge that we face, the sustainable business design. I'll give an example of a pathbreaker and wrap up with some lessons for a livable planet. The wisdom of Homer. So according to the IPCC, that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they issued their latest report in summer of 2021. And we are at the highest level of carbon dioxide that we have had in our atmosphere for the past 800,000 years. We've already experienced 1.1 degrees Celsius warming since pre-industrial times. And although that seems really, really small, we're already experiencing major disruptions to our climate system. So we have sea level rising. We're experiencing drought, heat, fires, severe storms, flooding. Just in the summer of 2021 alone, in the US, we have had many people suffer through Hurricane Ida, the Dixie fires in California, the incredible heat waves across the Pacific Northwest in the US and Canada. There was incredible flooding in Germany and incredible flooding in China, all in the summer of 2021. Any one of those issues would have been a major disruption, and we're just facing them one right after the other, and sometimes at the same time in different parts of the country and the world. So sadly, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change tells us that climate change will intensify over the next 20 years, even if we do everything we can to move off of fossil fuels. But we can reduce the major impacts from climate change, and we can avoid extreme suffering across the world. However, action in this decade is critical for us to do that, and the window is closing quickly. On top of that, all of the nations that participate in the United Nations unanimously agreed on sustainable development goals for the world for this decade that we're in. There are 17 of them, and these include not only climate change, but go well beyond that to address social and economic goals. These are international goals, but they're very relevant to the United States as well. And let me demonstrate why. What you're seeing here is a chart from Thomas Piketty's research on income inequality. This is showing income inequality in the United States. And what we're seeing on this chart is that the portion of income that has gone to the top 10% of the population has increased from the late 1970s until today. The chart only goes to 2010. However, we know that this has continued to accelerate through the pandemic. And the reason that we're seeing that is because the benefits of economic growth as measured in GDP, gross domestic product, and stock market growth go to those disproportionately who invest in stocks and bonds, and not those who rely on their labor for their income. So not only is wealth disproportionate based on class in this country, but it's also unequal based on race and ethnicity. In 2016, the average white family held 7 times more wealth than a Black family and 5 times more wealth than a Hispanic family. So clearly our businesses are generating both inequality and climate change disruption. The root cause of this is the dominant business model, investor-owned corporations. They do really well what they're designed to do. And their top priority is producing financial returns for shareholders without any real commitment to larger goals. So we really need to rethink and redesign our business enterprises if we're going to have a livable planet with greater shared prosperity. The picture I'm showing you here is from New Delhi's India Gate War Memorial, and it contrasts the air pollution in October of 2019 to that of April 2020, when we were in the midst of the first lockdown from the pandemic. And why I'm showing you this is that while the climate emergency is frightening, there's so much space for opportunity as we deeply decarbonize and reach the Sustainable Development Goals. And we can see the immediate results in cleaner air, less asthma, less premature deaths from air pollution when we stop burning fossil fuels. And this picture from New Delhi demonstrates in a rather dramatic way how quickly clean air can happen. So what if, instead of reducing suffering, which is the focus of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we instead could design a better economy that allowed for shared prosperity, and that we increased our happiness through the redesign of our democratic enterprises. This is what I'm calling for, is a democratic economy, one that's of, by, and for the people. We need more owners. We need to incorporate the principle of one worker, one vote into our enterprises, and include sustainability and deep decarbonization into the core purpose of our businesses in order to improve communities in which we're operating and share prosperity more broadly across society. So I don't really need to talk to you about the cooperative difference because you all know that cooperatives offer an alternative, but they can also be designed to be better than they're operating today. These are enterprises, of course, that are owned and run by their members, and capital is subdued in the cooperative model. It's a flexible model. These exist in most economic sectors, and the key piece here is that there are shared co-op values and principles across the world. So I really think that flexing the muscle of these shared co-op values and principles is a way for us to move forward as we redesign our economy for greater prosperity. Because cooperatives are a values-driven business model, and one of the shared principles is sustainable development. That's in Principle 7, concern for the community. Cooperatives have a tremendous potential to fundamentally alter the sustainability of how we do business. Building the triple bottom line of protecting the environment, society, and the financial health of the cooperative into the overarching organizational purpose is extremely important to influencing the day-to-day practices of the co-op. We need this kind of sustainability purpose from companies in order to create sustainable value within planetary boundaries. There are currently no laws in the EU or the US that require investor-owned corporations to have a social or environmental purpose. You may be surprised that there are no co-op laws in the US that require this either. And this is a really missing piece. We're missing out on a distinction for cooperatives. The bottom line here is that co-ops are not going to be required by law to do this, but you can, on an individual enterprise level, articulate a strong sustainability purpose and account for it in non-financial audits of your co-op. The General Reporting Initiative is a great framework for sustainability reporting. It is the most commonly used framework by investor-owned corporations. But co-ops are really lagging behind on using sustainability measuring and reporting. So there have been studies done across various countries that have shown that co-ops don't really report in this way, and also don't really even identify the environment as what they mean, protecting the environment as what they mean when they use the term sustainability. So there is definitely a need for greater awareness that triple bottom line sustainability is something that includes environmental protection. And there's a greater need to incorporate that into the legal design of the co-op. In the book, I talk about a number of path breakers. One of the examples I give about the legal design comes from a path breaker in Massachusetts. This is a worker-owned cooperative called Real Pickles. They have a great example of how to effectively integrate co-op values and principles into their articles of incorporation and bylaws. They have a very durable focus on sustainability, and they're committed to not only the co-op values, but they tie it into the specific products that they're producing, focusing on ecological health and human health and worker participation in their co-op. You can see an excerpt from their articles and their bylaws in my book, and I think I just commend you to look more into that co-op. So the opportunity moving forward here. We need to redesign to move off fossil fuels and meet the sustainable development goals. What's the best business structure to do this? Of course, union co-ops. But we're not hearing about this in the federal discussions about policy, are we? The Biden administration has elaborated on major goals, especially during the past couple of weeks, during the international climate negotiations, to move this country off of fossil fuels and invest in infrastructure. So you hear about rewarding utilities for adding renewable energy, massive investments in the renewable energy sector, adding hundreds of offshore wind turbines, creating goals so that half the new cars sold are going to be electric by 2030. Nowhere in these discussions is there a prominent understanding about the business structure that is best equipped to make this transition. And it's really important for co-ops to surface in these discussions as the leading option for business design. So we need to move forward, and the path forward is to rethink and redesign our relationship with natural resources. The international community urges swift decarbonization in this decade to reach net zero emissions. That means also integrating the sustainable development goals into the business enterprises that we have. We need a stronger focus on the organizational purpose. The fundamental driver of environmental outcomes is the business model. And we need to recognize that and identify what we can do within the businesses that all of us may be participating in to incorporate sustainability into our organizational purpose, and to then demonstrate to the world what we're doing through non-financial reporting. So in order to make this transition, given this tight time frame, we need a very strategic approach to the key economic sectors that are needed to move off of fossil fuels: energy, food and agriculture, water, finance, and trade. Globally and in the US, greenhouse gases to extract, process, and combust fossil fuels for energy make up about 70% of our greenhouse gases. This is the biggest area that we have for change. However, all these other sectors that I mentioned are important for this change as well. And there's a role for union co-ops in each of these sectors. So what would the energy transition look like? We need to bring renewable electricity to the 1.1 billion people who currently lack any electricity and switch existing demand off of fossil fuels. This is the biggest challenge and opportunity that we face in this transition. What would disrupting the business model look like for energy? It would mean that we're creating union worker co-ops that are focused on energy efficiency and conservation, that we're retiring all fossil fuel electric generation plants that do not capture their greenhouse gases, that we are developing renewable energy generating capacity in the least environmentally destructive ways available, that we're planning for greater electricity demand as we incentivize a switch to electric vehicles, and that we're investing in storage of renewable energy to smooth out the points in the day when you don't have energy from the sun or wind powering the turbines. Combined with all of that, we need to emphasize democratic ownership and participation models that reduce energy poverty. And all of this means jobs in the clean, fossil-free economy to make these transitions. And union co-ops should be emphasized as the business model to move us into this renewables revolution. Why should we care about the business model? Because cooperatives are a values-driven business model, and one shared principle is sustainable development. They have a tremendous potential to fundamentally alter the sustainability of how we do business and have the greatest flexibility to pursue sustainable development goals, even when it means pursuing them with a cost to your financial bottom line. We need lawyers to approach legal design of ownership and governance with a deep understanding of this sector and how to maximize its benefits for democracy, society, and the environment. We're entering a renewable energy revolution, and this is a huge opportunity for the co-benefits of democratic ownership to create more worker owners and to pursue the broader sustainable development goals So this is something that I think all of you can be participating in. I want to talk briefly about some of the path breakers in the book, just to take this out of the realm of the big picture and into the realm of examples of how this is being carried out. So here's where I'd like to talk to you about finance. Banks play a critical role in financing either fossil fuel development or renewables development. They determine access to capital for growth of all institutions, right? And the Rainforest Action Network documented that between 2016 and 2019, the top 10 investor-owned banks funded $1 trillion in fossil fuels. This is by far eclipsing anything that they have put into renewable energy. And this is a major issue because if you turn off the financing spigot, the businesses can't continue to grow. To put it another way, how is it that in other words, to put it in other way, how do cooperative banks function within the system? So I have a path breaker in the book called Caixa Popular. This is a Spanish stakeholder bank based in the autonomous community of Valencia, Spain. It's owned by its employees and by other cooperatives. So it's a hybrid co-op. It has a values-based purpose that is something that mirrors the international co-op values and principles. It's focused on reducing waste, operating all of its facilities on renewables. It makes no loans to fossil fuel companies and is loaning to renewable energy companies. This co-op finances other cooperatives to help them thrive. And you can see that reflected in the growth of worker-owned co-ops in this community. The bank is a fundamental part of the co-op ecosystem there. The Valencian community had over 2,000 worker co-ops with 21,000 worker owners, and that was in 2016. So they're really thriving in this region, and the bank is a key piece of that. So one of the things that the bank does is has a very strong transparency and mission clarity. They have a strict salary policy with caps written into their bylaws, and they measure their carbon dioxide emissions, they're conserving energy, they're practicing energy efficiency, and they don't make speculative loans. So during the housing bubble that led up to the global economic meltdown in 2008 and onward, this bank did not have to foreclose on any of the homes that it had loaned to because it didn't make any speculative loans. It's a great success story in terms of how the bank is integrated into building the community and supporting the ecosystem of worker-owned co-ops in this area. So I want to close with a note of hope that if we encourage co-ops to flourish, we can mitigate climate change. We can create more owners and share wealth more equitably. We do need to think collaboratively and internationally in order to accomplish this. And I hope that you'll be interested in reading about the path breakers in the book and learning more about them. Some of the lessons that I've taken from the path breakers about legal design, I'm going to pass on to you in short form here. The path breakers that are most impressive use their articles of organization and bylaws to articulate their purpose. They usually have very strong co-op values and principles that are integrated into these documents and help promote the day-to-day operations of the co-op and how to integrate this into the day-to-day operations. They emphasize democratic governance. A lot of them have hybrid membership options. They use salary policies that promote transparency in salaries and cap the highest and lowest paid, so that there is a tighter gap between those employee categories. And they usually set up funds for education and charity so that their surplus not only goes to the worker owners, but also to other NGOs in the community to help carry out Principle 7's concern for the community. So I do believe cooperatives can be a fantastic tool for prosperity. And I'm thrilled that all of you are here today working on the Union Co-op pursuit, and I wish you well. If anyone has questions or would like to discuss the topics that I've covered today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you.